my correspondents, everyone listening. Jason, thank you so much. Hello, hello. My article today, short article, but wanted to utilize some time and ask my correspondents a question afterwards. But my article today comes out of Culver City. 3 suspects sought in a robbery at a dispensary. Authorities said on Thursday that they need help. Oh, they need the public.
You got to mute, Dale. Dale, you got to mute. Keep going, Chris. Keep going, Chris. Just keep going.
Authorities on Thursday sought the public's help to find 3 suspects who robbed a man at gunpoint of about 120 pounds of marijuana outside a dispensary in Culver City. Wednesday at about 7:35 p.m. This occurred in the 3700 block of Robertson. The victim was unloading an estimated 120 pounds of marijuana when 2 suspects exited a vehicle with handguns and robbed him of the marijuana. There's a little bit of suspect description, a silver Honda, and ultimately this looks like a press release from the Culver City PD through local media asking the public's assistance. But really, I guess my question I wanted to bring up with this to my fellow correspondents, we're starting to see, I'm at least starting to see more of these types of stories being reported in the media this year, as opposed to what I believe was less last year that I saw. I see more of it in the media this year than last year. Certainly, this has been an ongoing problem and nothing new. It's not a new issue in the industry by any means. But my question would be, do you guys think that media more and more reporting on this is good or bad? One argument that it could be bad is that people, who ultimately aren't committing these crimes right now will start because they see that, this stuff is happening. The good argument could be that, it's good to get this information out so people are made aware. But I'm sure, and I know that people in the industry already are aware that this is an ongoing problem. So how do we feel about the media increasingly reporting on theft, robberies, and burglaries in the cannabis industry?
Well, I'll tell you what, if they didn't report on crime, thefts, and burglaries, we'd have a lot less news to report every day, Chris.
There you go.
Just for starters.
Appreciate that comment. Yeah, I agree. I think it's good that it's being reported on and, the general public is aware. But the one concern I have is, again, we have a retail theft problem in this country, period. This issue is not specific to the cannabis industry, and I don't want to see or hear the argument, that licensed cannabis businesses, bring in more crime. As we know, there's a high standard of security and cameras and things like that in the industry that law enforcement relies on outside of investigations related to cannabis. Specifically, hit and runs. I would always tell people when I was a footbeat officer in San Francisco on Market Street, keep a log of when law enforcement asks for your cameras, and use that as a data point in community meetings and things like that, because law enforcement does rely and is well aware that these businesses have, more cameras than typical retail or other types of businesses. And obviously, it's a requirement. So, there is a reliance on law enforcement, and they do utilize cannabis businesses on investigations, specifically and mostly, in my experience, related to hit and run and vehicle accidents and things like that. But as the media more reports on this, I think it's a net positive. But to be clear, my stance has always been that we have a retail theft problem in this country, and it's not specific to cannabis. I don't believe that cannabis businesses bring in additional crime, but it is important to report on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would say, in regards to this story, I'm just kind of torn because they didn't really give descriptions other than their clothes.
Hold on, the descriptions were terrible.
Yeah, I understand, the stigma and everything, if it's an African-American male or if it's a Latino male or whatever like that. I understand like the stigma and the rates and everything and the overall psychological effect. You keep on hearing it's a black male, keep on hearing that it's a brown male doing this stuff. But if you can just say the assailants weren't found, rather than just saying, oh, they were wearing dark clothing and one was 6 foot, one was 5'8", like that really doesn't help anything at all, right? Just say like the assailants got away, or give the full description. I don't think I think that's just like bullshit, like reporting. I understand what they're trying to do, what they're trying to alleviate, but like just don't say anything like about the description at all, or give a proper description. If you really want the people to know this information, if you want these people to get caught, then you have to give an accurate description of who the assailants were.
I totally agree with you on that, Rico, because the reality of these descriptions is like one was wearing a black hoodie with
Right.
white spots.
It could be anybody.
But but with it said black hoodie.
I'm wearing
with
a
white
black
spots.
hoodie. Yeah. I'm wearing a black hoodie. So this is, I think it's an important point at how we're describing it, but it's also incumbent upon perhaps reporters who are overworked and often are not doing their homework, that there are two key issues here. You said it first, Chris. The chief of police of Los Angeles a few years ago, when we were trying to control, tax, and regulate cannabis for adult use, said, oh, crime goes up around dispensaries. And then he did a study and discovered crime went down around dispensaries. And then he actually went on the news and said, you know what, I was wrong, which I almost fell over. But the fact is he admitted he was wrong, that crime goes down, property crime, crimes against others, muggings, because you now have eyes on the street walking the block to make sure that crime isn't happening to the dispensary. So overall crime goes down. However, especially here in California, Prop 47, which we were supportive of in spirit, but the second thing that Chris said is this is a problem across the board when it happens to banks, when it happens to jewelry stores, when it happens to convenience stores, and certainly when it happens to cannabis dispensaries. The difference between all of those is we don't have safe banking. And I think that needs to be underlined with an exclamation point every time we have this conversation about crime, whether it's to the dispensary or their customers. And at the end of the day, Oaksterdam has turned over tape hundreds of times to law enforcement for muggings, other property crimes around us, for exactly the same reason that you just said, is we will not abide crimes against others and violent crime. Cannabis isn't the crime, and let's help our community law enforcement end it. But if you're shoveling shit into the tide and you arrest them and they're released and there's no consequences, this is now how people make a living, and the larger issue also needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know it's up in Northern California, it's crazy. It is crazy up there, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse with the wealth gap widening. And listen, I understand. You know, I'm a big data person myself. I understand like the broad data implications, and it'll be good in the long term for communities of color. You know, with was it Prop 47? I want to say when they raised the limit for theft that you can actually get popped for or go to jail for. But like right now in these economic times, like it isn't doing nobody good, and these cats are just getting right back on the streets and doing the same shit over and over and over again, and it ain't safe. As a father of a young daughter right now, like I'm thinking about getting the fuck out of California because I can't properly protect my family right now. Mm-hmm. With the necessary measures that I was brought up to know that will protect my family. I can't do that legally here, and I feel like it's not a fair fight right now.
That law is across the country, though, my friend. That's an ATF policy, so you are not legally allowed to protect your family anywhere you live.
No. California,
fire with fire in other states, and the guns that I have legally in other states, like I can't legally have here. And these are the guns that are readily available on the streets for these criminals. And a lot of them, like, they have no other option. They can't afford to live in LA. They can't afford to live in San Francisco. And so they get it how they're going to get it. And unfortunately, a lot of people are getting caught up. A lot of people are getting popped right now, and it's just not a fair fight.
Look at that one guy in LA.
Biden just got popped for having a gun and drugs. It's not legal anywhere in the country. I don't care who you are. Right now, we do not have Second Amendment protections.
That's not the bigger problem. The bigger problem is the fact that you can't protect yourself even in those situations in the state of California right now. We just have that one guy. He was a distro operator. He was all over the news news a little while ago. He had a home invasion robbery, okay, and then he started shooting at him, and now he's getting charged with it.
Because he's not allowed to have a gun because he is a marijuana. Like there's two different, look, the streams have crossed here. Okay. They're both a problem. And I'm not saying that what you are describing isn't also a problem, but at the end of the day, no citizen in America has their Second Amendment right, full stop, because of the current policies. So you can say California versus Arkansas, but at the end of the day, none of us are allowed to have a gun to protect ourselves because we are cannabis consumers or we are in the business of cannabis.
Well, yes, Dale, I would take it a step further with my argument. I'm saying, as a California citizen, when these young guys and gals are running around in the streets and they're doing armed robbery and shit like that, it's not a fair fight. You cannot legally have in California the same type of heat, the same type of equipment to protect yourself as a citizen. If you take the cannabis out of it, let's just say I don't smoke weed at all, I'm a legal gun owner, you do not have the same equipment as these people do on the streets.
That part.
And you cannot properly protect your home, protect your family like you can in other states in California. And that's how I feel, as a father living in this city. It's like, like I'm always on high alert, and I don't like being like that. I'm not a high-strung person.
You live in Oakland, my friend. I feel you.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's even worse up. It's even worse up north.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's crazy times we're living in right now, and there's not enough money and opportunity for people at the bottom. So you know how they get it? They see these nice cars, they see this nice shit everywhere. I'm seeing the YSL store getting run up on Rodeo Drive.
Yep.
Right now, it's not just like a little petty theft no more. Like, they know exactly what the amount is, where they won't be popped for felony, they won't be held for that, and they keep on doing it over and over and over again. I've seen people getting shot at. I see I actually moved out of South Central, and I saw less action in South Central than I have recently when I moved to Gardena.
There's like a street code in South Central. There's no code anymore of no honor.
The game's all messed up, and the cops ain't coming quick enough, and the cops, for some reason, there's a management problem. You can speak to this, Chris. There's a management problem with police. There's because it's all decentralized. It's just not. It's everything's messed up right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a internally within law enforcement, they call it, and they would never admit to this, but behind the curtain, I can tell you they call it the fireman mentality, which is, I'm going to sit at the station until I get a call. And if it's a top priority call, they got to go, 1 or an A priority. Anything like a 2 or 3 or a B or a C, a sergeant's not going to be, pushing officers out the door. And just walk by, Tenderloin Station, walk by Central Station in San Francisco and look at all of the patrol cars, not patrolling, but, in front of the station. And, that's what they call it inside is, fireman mentality.
What they call it in Oakland and San Fran, bipping. Yeah, getting bipped when
they got bipping down here in LA now,
knock out the windows and pull shit out the cars. They're doing that shit in front of cops.
Yeah,
and I've seen like multiple videos on IG, on YouTube and stuff. Like right in front of the police.
That's because if it's not
into vehicles.
That's because if they're not stealing more than $1,000, then there's no crime.
Yeah, they know. Yeah, was it like 900? Is like the limit. They know
$1,000 bucks. $1,000, $999. It's like insane.
I don't listen, man. Like, I do not feel safe, and I feel like if some shit like that goes down, I'm gonna end up doing life in prison and not being there for my family, because I will end up doing something else. I will end up retaliating.
Yeah, and so just a quick note on this story, Chris. You mentioned theft, spikes in retail theft, and this place that was robbed is a dispensary. But if you notice, it was all bulk flower that was purchased, and so this is actually a micro license. So this was actually the distro that was robbed, as opposed to the actual retail store. And so I think that's an important distinction for people to understand, because in cannabis,
Jason, thank you for making that.
In cannabis, we have an epidemic of people robbing distribution facilities and cultivations, not necessarily just standalone retails.
And that's for the drugs, not the cash, because there's not a lot of cash there.
No.
And I've said this before, and it's okay. I mean, I totally understand if people disagree, but in my experience, burglaries, especially the after-hour burglaries, I'm not talking robberies, I'm not talking like a related to the story, but after-hour burglaries, in our experience, people are after the product first and then the cash second. And so I'm safe banking, certainly will help to some degree, but there is, Jason well said, distros are getting hit, left and right, and people are after the product.
That's the target. You're not going to steal packaged eighths because that's way too much bulk to carry around and try to resell. You're trying to go after bulk pounds because that's the easiest thing to sell on the streets. And